In my intermediate Git course, I cover a Git tool called Git Bisect, which makes it easy to isolate and find where something occurred, like a breaking change or where something else happened in the history of the repository. Essentially, Git Bisect takes a range of commits and then one by one bisects them, asking you for feedback whether that change is there or not, and then isolates down to the single commit where that change happened. It's a really powerful tool, especially if you're working with a lot of commits and you need a way to sift through all of the changes to find exactly when something happened. Let's say a breaking change. Now it's a really great command, but there's something that we can do to enhance it a little bit. We can change the terms that are used to describe the changes. By default, we use git bisect good, which means that it's a good version of the repository, and git bisect bad, which means that breaking change or whatever it is that we don't want is present. So it's good and bad. But we can change those to be whatever we want them to be. In my example here, I just have this learning Ruby example that I forked off of GitHub. I have a file here called needle.rb. And this is kind of like finding the needle in the haystack. So I have this file, and I want to find out when needle was introduced into the repository so I can isolate it down to the single commit where it was introduced. Of course, in a small repository like this is kind of a contrived example. I could just look through the log history and pretty much find it pretty quickly. But let's assume we are dealing with something much smaller and harder to find than a single file like this. But for demonstration purposes, this works nicely. So I want to change the terminology from git bisect good and bad to git bisect needle and git bisect no needle. So let's do that. So we're going to do git bisect start, and then we'll say term good would be no needle. So we're using this option here of saying term good equals no needle, and term bad equals needle. So now we can start our bisect. So we just entered into this bisect routine. So now I can say git bisect no needle is at this commit. I've isolated it down to this range. And then git bisect needle. So I'm creating this beginning range. This would originally be bad. So git bisect needle is this range, this commit. There, I've isolated that out. All right, so I've got 6 revisions left, so I can just do a quick ls and I can say git bisect. I don't see a needle, no needle. All right, there I see the needle, git bisect needle. And still there, git bisect needle. And not there, git bisect no needle. And there we go. It found where the needle was added. You can see if I make this a little bit smaller, you can see here it was added in this commit right here. There's the A for it being added, and it was this commit right here. So now I could maybe check that commit out, make a change, or at least I isolated the file and I could do something like that. Or maybe I could just blame somebody. In this case, it would be myself. But this is how we can take the git bisect terms that we use to describe the state of the repository as git bisect is checking it out from good and bad to be more descriptive based on the thing we're actually trying to find. And if you're having to do a lot of git bisect good and bads, it might be helpful to have that. So since we're done, we'll say git bisect reset. And now we're back to where we were on master. So that's a quick little tip for using Git Bisect. If you want to learn more about using Git version control, go to majingo.com/git.